So we're going to do something a little different with this NJS Collective. We are excited about helping people with their businesses, their ideas, their passions. Well, we're going to do something called Rapid Fire. Where we're going to just have some questions that have been sent in to us, and we're going to have a limited amount of time to answer it. So I know, you know, in your other life, you're a preacher, but you're going to have to bring it on in, and because we only have a limited amount of time. A limited amount of time. Again, this is my father, Jerome Shaw. I'm Nathan Shaw Jr. Got to get that junior in there. All right,
I'm Nathan Jerome Shaw Sr.
Senior, yes, very senior, as in older.
Somebody just had a birthday.
All right, so what is our first question?
The answer to that question is absolutely yes.
Okay.
The question does, though, have some things that we have to go through, and I would definitely answer a few questions before I actually started that. What do you?
Absolutely. I think that yes, the answer is yes, but you have to make sure that you have the capacity and the time. So when you talk about starting a business, it's actually a lot that goes into that. When you're starting a new business, you may be working 30, 20, 40 hours toward that business. So do you have the capacity to work your 9 to 5 and start this new venture, or actually are you at the idea phase where you're still working it out? So I think that's something that they can come and talk to us about, and we can kind of help them navigate starting that business.
Absolutely. If the idea just came to you and you just started thinking about it, well, then the question would be no, because you're not ready to do that yet. But if this is something that you've already kind of started in your mind and asked some questions, done some research, definitely come to NJS Collective, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Absolutely. I love talking about skills, talents, abilities. It's absolutely amazing. But I think the first thing is, and I actually talk about this in the book, Journey to Purpose, which is available. But basically, a skill is great, but a skill is not always something that you're going to produce into a business. You may be skilled at something, but that may not necessarily be something that's going to necessarily generate revenue to you. So I think the first thing to start is you kind of have to evaluate that skill and see how can that skill, if that skill can generate an income source for you.
A skill by itself may not be enough. Not saying that it's not, but it may not possibly be enough. You need to evaluate that. Sometimes you can be skilled working another person's job, but unless you're able to develop that same job, it might be difficult.
So I think the biggest thing to start is to make sure that you have written down what you're good at. Write down the areas or the people that skill can impact, and then find out, is there a source or way that you can generate income utilizing that skills. And then I think you need to talk with somebody. This is another opportunity for them to come and connect with NJS so we can see how we can turn that skill into something that can generate income.
All right, next question.
Ooh.
I'm gonna let you go ahead and handle that.
Wow.
You talk about it so much.
What is a business plan and how do I handle it? So, because we have a pastor here, I'm gonna go from a scripture in Habakkuk 2:2. What does it say, Pastor?
It's something about writing something. And
oh wow, y'all pray for it. But it's write the vision, make it plain. So why?
Well, here's the whole thing. Here's the understanding. You have to make it plain so others can take it and run with it. You can't just write something down and feel like, and a lot of people won't write it down, they'll keep it in their head. And it's very important to actually write it down.
Yes, absolutely.
But to keep it in their head and they figure like, well, I don't need to write it because it's there. No.
I'm gonna tell you why, because if you write it down, if you don't write it down, you're not accountable to it.
Right.
You can change it up in your mind over and over again and there's no real accountability. So if you have, you really have to write a business plan, because here's my thing, and this might be a little harsh. If you have a business without a business plan, you really just have a hobby.
Yeah,
you really don't have a business because you haven't invested enough time to actually take the time to sit down and write what your goals are, what your vision is, what your location is, who is going to impact, write down your target market. This is what happens with a business plan. So if you don't have a business plan, then you're really not doing business well. So that's another place where they can yet come to us and allow us to help you craft your business plan, allow us to help you bring some definition to your idea, or it's just going to be a hobby.
Well, which is to say, because you've not written it down, don't give up on your dream. Don't give up on your vision. come to us. Let us talk to you about it. Let us help you develop it. Sometimes just that conversation is going to spark some things and get you to the right place.
That was some good sugar to my vinegar, because I was just coming at them hard, and you just say, don't stop the vision, but you need to write it down. You have to make sure you put time toward that. So yeah, love it.
Well, that is actually a very good question, because sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. Sometimes when you add too many people to what you're doing, it gets clouded. It gets kind of messed up. It falls apart because when the vision is yours, then you're the one that has to implement it. Not that you won't add anybody else, Nathan. It is not that, but there has to be some direction to it. And so now, if I got my vision, and Nathan has a vision, and you got a vision, and you got a vision, we come together, we can't really pull it together because we all have different desires.
That's a great point. It has to start with somewhere. It has to start somewhere. And here's the thing, when you're dealing with partners, there's some questions you have to answer. In regards to if there's a decision to be made, who's that decision fall on? I know people talk about 50-50 partners and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, who's going to make that decision? And here's another thing. A lot of times people that are small businesses, the partners or the people they're working with is family.
Yeah.
And that is a difficult thing to work with. That's difficult to work with family. It's not always easy to work with family.
He's touching me because I've had to learn that lesson.
It's not hard. It's not easy to work with family. But you have to. My question for them would be, what partners? Who are you doing? I think you have to evaluate who are the people that are going to help you toward your vision, and are they adding to your vision, or is it a collective vision? Because at the end of the day, you got to look at how is the money going to be divided.
Yes.
Who is going to be the final decision maker? Who's going to make those connections? Who's going to be the face? Whose name is going to be on the business? A lot of times people have issues because it's not their name.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors. It's great to have partners, but you have to have the right partners.
And then here's the question, and it's a big one. It's not always good to go and we talk about family, but even your friends, you figure like, we're friends, and we can get over it. We never had an argument at all. You go into business with each other.
Let money get involved. Let money get involved.
Have an argument. So sometimes you need to develop it first, or most times you develop it first, and then if the Lord allows you to bring other people in, you can certainly do so.
And one of the things, and we got to go, but one of the things that I'll say to this as well, and I've had to personally learn this, is that in your business, you could have so many people a part of it, but you got to make sure that you're sustaining yourself.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you have a source of income yourself. So if you add too many people, then you're actually divvying it out to everyone else, and you don't have a set income. But at the end of the day, you do need a team, and partners are going to be needed down the line.
Yep.
I think that goes, how do you resolve conflicts in a business? I think that goes again to the structure of the business, to be quite honest. When you're developing your organizational chart, there are certain people that have certain levels of authority. And that's important. It's very hard. Again, with family or when you're dealing with friends, it's kind of hard, but at some point there has to be a decision maker. Now, there's sometimes where you have mediation and you have, like, for instance, if it's a employee dispute, or if there's an issue where an employee has an issue with a manager, then there's HR that can get involved. But when you're a small business, you don't have all of those roles. And so you really have to make sure your organizational chart is correct. And then people know who does the final decision stand for or stand with, and who controls the money flow and who controls the decisions.
And a lot of times that also depends on, say from a partner standpoint, who's 51%, or who has the biggest percentage. And then if you're a 30, 40, 45, 25, then it's going to depend, because maybe the 25 and the 40 can get together. So it makes a lot of difference. You ought to set that up and think about those things ahead of time. Don't let them come to you without having some forethought.
One thing I'll say from a leadership standpoint is sometimes it's better to make sure that there is a peaceful environment. And so it's not always good to just push your way. I know as a leader, sometimes, if you're going to the same destination, and they just have a different method to get there, sometimes you want that buy-in, and you might be able to allow them to go their route, but it's going to the same destination. Sometimes as a leader, you have to kind of take a step back to make sure the team has ownership, or your partners or your leaders have ownership in the vision. So it's not always about your way. And I think compromise in partnership is very important.
You also, there's no sense in having a partnership if you're not willing to listen to another side. You know, even Nathan and I, we've had some issues where
Lord.
I've had to go back, and people say, well, you're the father. That has nothing to do with it. I've had to go back and listen to some things and go, that does make sense. That does make sense. Well, maybe we'll do it that way, and sometimes it's better, and vice versa. So you really have to have some forethought. Don't just go into it. Have forethought in this.
Absolutely. All right.
Well.
So that was it. Wow. We did get good.
I thought so.
We
I
did
thought so.
good.
You didn't
Well,
talk
listen,
too much?
I didn't. You didn't either. So this was Rapid Fire with NJS Collective. If you have a question that you want us to answer quickly, because we can both talk, he can talk more, then we can send them in to our email, or go to njscollective.com, submit your question, and we will make sure that we answer them as concisely as they can. And we're not going to assume that we know everything. So if we need to do some research, we will, and we'll get back to you. But we appreciate you for this segment of Rapid Fire.
Let me give them an idea for next time.
This is an example of him talking more.
Ask this question.
He's talking more.
And send it in.
It's called the preacher.
Can you have more than one business?
The second quiz.
Can you have more than one
So he's
business?
answering his own question.
Send that question out.
He wants to
so
answer his own question. So go ahead.
And I'm going to allow Nathan to answer it.
He wants to answer his own question.
Next time.
Oh, next time.
Next time.
Okay. All right. Well, NJS Collective, we're here for you.